The lawyer slid the DNA test results across the mahogany table, and Maya Washington watched the billionaire's arrogant smile freeze on his face, because the medical examination had just proven that the twins asleep in her arms were undeniably his. 23-year-old Maya had spent the last 6 months preparing for this moment, but nothing could have readied her for the cold satisfaction of watching Dominic Ashford's world crack open. His steel-grey eyes, the same shade as little Isabella's, flickered from the document to her face, then to the sleeping babies she cradled with practiced ease. The silence in the conference room stretched like piano wire pulled too tight. "This is impossible," Dominic finally said, his voice stripped of its usual commanding tone. Maya adjusted Isabella in her left arm while baby Elijah stirred against her right shoulder. She dressed carefully for this meeting, a navy dress that her grandmother had helped her select, her natural curls pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup that couldn't hide the exhaustion carved beneath her eyes. 6 months of single motherhood had aged her, but it had also forged her into something harder than the naive young woman who'd fallen for a billionaire's promises. "The lab doesn't lie, Mr. Ashford," Attorney Patricia Chen said crisply. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and the kind of sharp intelligence that had won countless cases against men exactly like Dominic. 3 separate DNA tests, 3 different laboratories. The probability of paternity is 99.99%. Your children are 6 months old, and you've denied their existence since the day Ms. Washington informed you of her pregnancy. Maya remembered that day with crystal clarity, standing in Dominic's penthouse office, her hands shaking as she showed him the positive pregnancy test. She'd been working as a museum curator's assistant, had met him at a gala where his company was donating millions to the arts. 3 months of whirlwind romance, promises whispered against her skin in the dark, talks of a future that had seemed so real she could taste it. Then the test, then his laughter. "You're not the first woman to try this," he'd said, that same cruel smile playing at his lips. "How much do you want? 50,000? 100? The memory still burned like acid in her throat. If you're listening to this and want more stories about women who refused to be silenced, who fought for their children against impossible odds, make sure to follow along, because Maya's journey is just beginning. And what she's about to uncover will shake the Ashford empire to its very foundation." Dominic stood abruptly, the chair scraping against imported Italian marble. At 38, he was everything the media portrayed, devastatingly handsome, impeccably dressed, with the kind of presence that commanded rooms full of powerful people. His black suit probably cost more than Maya had made in a year at the museum. But right now, standing in the offices of Chen and Associates, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, he looked like a man watching his carefully constructed world tilt on its axis. "I want another test," he demanded. "We anticipated that." Patricia slid 3 more folders across the table. Chain of custody documentation, laboratory certifications, genetic markers. Everything has been triple verified. "Your children are 6 months old, Mr. Ashford. 6 months you've denied them. 6 months, Ms. Washington has raised them alone while working 2 jobs to afford diapers and formula." Maya felt Isabella's small hand curl around her finger, and the fierce, protective love that surged through her was enough to keep her voice steady. "I didn't come here for money," she said quietly. "I came here for the truth, and now that we have it, I came here to ensure my children know their father, if he's capable of being one." Dominic's jaw clenched. "You have no idea what you're doing. Do you know who I am? What my family—" "The Ashford dynasty," Maya interrupted, and there was steel in her voice that surprised even her. "Real estate empire spanning 3 continents. Net worth approximately $18 billion, reputation for ruthless business practices and an even more ruthless personal life. Yes, Mr. Ashford, I know exactly who you are. I also know that Isabella has your eyes and your stubborn chin. That Elijah has your mother's nose. I've seen the photos in the society pages, and I know that denying your own blood makes you exactly the kind of man your grandfather warned you not to become. The mention of his grandfather made Dominic's expression flicker. Maya had done her research during those long, sleepless nights while the twins cried, and she paced the cramped apartment in Queens. Marcus Ashford, the family patriarch who'd built the empire from nothing, had died 2 years ago. The society columns had been full of the memorial, the speeches about integrity and family values. Patricia cleared her throat. Mr. Ashford, New York family law is quite clear. You have parental responsibilities and, should you choose to accept them, parental rights. Ms. Washington isn't seeking sole custody, she's seeking fairness. Child support commensurate with your income, medical coverage for the twins, and a formal custody arrangement that serves their best interests. And if I refuse, Dominic's voice was cold, then we file in family court, and this becomes very public very quickly, Patricia said smoothly. I'm sure the board of Ashford Enterprises would be fascinated to learn that their CEO has been denying his own children, particularly given the company's recent campaign about family values and ethical leadership. Maya watched the calculation flash across Dominic's face. This was the man she'd once thought she loved. Brilliant, strategic, always 3 moves ahead. But she'd learned to play chess too, during those long months of pregnancy, while he'd ignored her calls and sent lawyers with non-disclosure agreements and settlement offers. She'd refused every penny, because this wasn't about money. It was about Isabella and Elijah knowing they were wanted, knowing they mattered, knowing their father hadn't simply thrown them away like yesterday's news. I need time, Dominic finally said. You've had 6 months, Maya replied softly. But yes, take time, 24 hours. We'll reconvene here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring your attorney, bring your accountant, bring whoever you need. But come prepared to do right by your children. She stood, settling the twins more securely in her arms. Patricia rose with her, a silent guardian. As they walked toward the elevator, Maya felt Dominic's eyes burning into her back. Maya, he called out, and she paused, turned. For just a moment, something human flickered in his expression. Did you really think I'd just accept this? Change everything? She met his gaze steadily. I thought you might want to know your children. I was wrong before. I hope I'm not wrong now. The elevator doors closed on his conflicted expression, and Maya let out the breath she'd been holding. Patricia touched her shoulder gently. You did well. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's the adrenaline. It'll pass. Patricia smiled. You're stronger than he thinks, Maya. Stronger than you think too, probably. As they descended toward the lobby, Maya looked down at her sleeping babies. Isabella had Dominic's thick lashes. Elijah had his strong brow. They were pieces of a man who'd broken her heart, but they were also entirely their own people, innocent, perfect, deserving of more than a father who saw them as an inconvenience. Her phone buzzed, a text from her grandmother. How did it go, baby? Maya was typing a response when Patricia's phone rang. The attorney's expression shifted as she listened. When? A pause. I see. Yes, we'll be there. She hung up, and the look on her face made Maya's stomach drop. What is it? Patricia hesitated, which was unlike her. That was Dominic's personal attorney. Apparently there's another complication. Dominic's mother, Catherine Ashford, is demanding an emergency meeting. Tonight, at the Ashford estate. Why would she? Because, Patricia said carefully, according to Dominic's attorney, Catherine claims she's known about the twins since the day you told Dominic. And she says the DNA results prove something much more dangerous than paternity, something that could destroy the entire Ashford family from within. The elevator doors opened onto the marble lobby, and Maya felt the ground shift beneath her feet. What could be more dangerous than the truth they'd just proven? What secret could Catherine Ashford possibly hold that made even Patricia Chen look worried? And why did Maya suddenly feel like she'd just opened a door that should have remained locked forever? The Ashford estate sprawled across 15 acres in Connecticut, a monument to generational wealth that made Maya's childhood home in Atlanta look like a dollhouse. As Patricia's car passed through iron gates that probably cost more than a year of Maya's salary, she clutched the twins closer and tried to steady her breathing. "Remember," Patricia said, "you don't have to answer anything you're uncomfortable with. You don't have to be here at all. We could have done this through attorneys." But Maya had insisted on coming. Whatever Catherine Ashford knew, whatever secrets were about to be revealed, she needed to face them directly. For Isabella and Elijah, for the future they deserved. A butler, an actual butler, opened the car door. The mansion rose before them like something from a movie, all white columns and glowing windows. Maya had only seen it once before, from the outside, when she'd driven past in the early days of dating Dominic, daydreaming about what their future might hold. She'd been such a fool. Catherine Ashford waited in what the butler called the West Drawing Room, though it looked more like a museum than a living space. Priceless art on the walls, furniture that belonged in Versailles, and standing by a fireplace large enough to roast a whole pig, a woman who made ice look warm. Catherine was 72, but could have passed for 60. Her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, her black dress simple but clearly couture. She had Dominic's eyes, that same steel grey, but where his sometimes softened, hers remained glacial. "Miss Washington," she said, not rising, "please sit." Maya settled into a chair that was probably worth more than her car. The twins still sleeping against her. She'd timed their feeding perfectly. They'd be quiet for another hour at least. Dominic stood by the windows, his back to the room. Another man sat in the corner, elderly, distinguished, with the kind of face that suggested he'd seen everything and judged most of it wanting. "This is Harrison Blackwell," Catherine said, "the Ashford family attorney for 40 years. He's been with us since before Dominic was born. He knows everything." The way she said everything made Maya's skin prickle. Patricia settled beside her, legal pad ready, every inch the professional warrior. But Maya could see the tension in her shoulders. "Mrs. Ashford," Patricia began, "you requested this meeting. Perhaps you could explain why." Catherine's smile was knife-thin. "Because Mrs. Washington has stumbled into something much larger than a simple paternity case. Because those DNA results prove what I've suspected for months. And because if we don't handle this carefully, the fallout won't just destroy Dominic's reputation. It will unravel a secret that 3 generations of Ashfords have died protecting." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Isabella stirred slightly, and she rocked her automatically, muscle memory taking over while her mind raced. "I don't understand," Maya said. "No, you wouldn't." Catherine rose, crossing to a portrait above the fireplace. It showed a man in his 50s, handsome and powerful, with eyes that seemed to see right through the canvas. My father-in-law, Marcus Ashford, the man who built this empire from nothing. The man whose legacy Dominic was supposed to protect. She turned back to Maya, and there was something new in her expression. Not warmth, exactly, but a kind of grim respect. "Tell me, Ms. Washington, what do you know about your own father?" The question hit like a slap. Maya's father had died when she was 6, a car accident, sudden and brutal, that had left her mother to raise 3 daughters alone. "What does my father have to do with any of this?" "Everything," Catherine said softly, "because your father, David Washington, worked for Marcus Ashford 30 years ago. He was Marcus's protege, his right-hand man, the son Marcus never had. And when David died, Marcus was devastated, guilty, because David had been driving Marcus's car, running an errand for Marcus, when the accident happened." Maya felt the room tilt. "No, that's not. My mother never said." Your mother didn't know the full story." Harrison Blackwell spoke for the first time, his voice rough with age. "Marcus made sure of that. He set up a trust for you girls, funneled through anonymous foundations and scholarships. Your museum internship, Marcus arranged it. Your college scholarships. Marcus, he's been watching over the Washington family from the shadows for 3 decades, trying to atone for the role he played in David's death. The twins, the internship, the scholarship that had made college possible when her mother's salary as a nurse couldn't stretch that far. Maya's entire adult life, unwinding like a thread pulled from a tapestry. And then you met Dominic," Catherine continued, "at that gala. Do you really think it was coincidence that you were invited, that you, a junior curator's assistant, received a personal invitation to an event that normally requires board-level connections?" Maya looked at Dominic, whose knuckles were white against the windowsill. "Did you know when you met me? Did you know who I was?" "No," he said hoarsely. "God, no, I had no idea, not until—" He turned, and the anguish on his face looked real. "Not until you told me you were pregnant. I went to my grandfather, furious, asking him for advice on handling a gold digger, and he told me everything. Who you really were, what he'd done, how he'd been protecting your family. And," Maya's voice cracked, "what did he tell you to do?" "To step up," Dominic whispered. "To be a man, to claim my children and make things right. He said David Washington had been worth 10 of me, and if David's daughter had chosen to love me, I should fall on my knees and thank God for the mercy I didn't deserve." Catherine's laugh was bitter. "And instead, my brilliant son laughed in your face and sent you away with checkbook solutions. Because that's what Ashfords do. We throw money at problems and hope they disappear." "But I didn't disappear," Maya said. "No." Catherine moved closer, her gaze intense. "You fought, like your father would have fought, and then those DNA tests came back, and I saw the genetic markers, and I realized something that even Dominic hasn't figured out yet." She pulled a folder from the side table, handed it to Patricia. "The second page. Look at the familial DNA patterns." Patricia scanned the document, and her sharp intake of breath told Maya everything she needed to know. This was bad. "Mrs. Ashford, this suggests that Marcus Ashford wasn't just David Washington's mentor and friend," Catherine said. "The genetic markers indicate a much closer relationship. First-degree relatives, parent and child." The room spun. Maya gripped the arms of the chair, Isabella and Elijah solid and real in her lap, while the world turned inside out. "Are you saying," Maya whispered, "that Marcus Ashford was my grandfather?" "Half-siblings," Harrison confirmed quietly. "Marcus and David's mother, your grandmother, had a relationship before Marcus married into the Ashford family. David was Marcus's illegitimate son, which makes you Marcus's granddaughter, and it makes Dominic your cousin," Patricia finished, her voice strained. "Oh my God!" Dominic stumbled backward, his face ashen. "That's impossible. We can't be—" "Second cousins," Harrison corrected. "Legally permissible in New York. Genetically concerning, but not catastrophic. The children will be fine, but publicly—" He shook his head. "The scandal would be immense. The Ashford family has built its reputation on traditional values, old money respectability. The revelation that Marcus had an illegitimate black son, that he hid this for decades, that his grandson then unknowingly had children with his own cousin—" "The board would force Dominic out," Catherine said flatly. "The stock would crater. Competitors would circle like sharks. Everything Marcus built would crumble." Maya felt tears streaming down her face, though she couldn't remember starting to cry. Every foundation of her identity had just shifted. Her father, the man she barely remembered but had spent her whole life grieving, had been Marcus Ashford's son. The scholarship, the internship, the gala invitation, none of it had been earned. It had all been guilt money, secret atonement from a grandfather who'd never claimed her, and Dominic, the man who'd broken her heart, the father of her children, was her family, blood family. Second cousins carrying forward a legacy neither of them had known existed. "Why are you telling me this?" Maya asked. "Why not just bury it? You're good at that, apparently." Catherine's expression softened fractionally. "Because you deserve the truth. Because your father deserved better than to be hidden like a shameful secret. And because—" she glanced at the twins. "Because Isabella and Elijah are my great-grandchildren, whether I like it or not. They're Ashfords, with all the privilege and poison that name carries. And I'll be damned if I let them grow up the way Dominic did, swimming in money, but starving for anything real." She sat down across from Maya, and for the first time there was something almost human in her eyes. "Marcus's will included provisions for you," she said quietly. "A substantial trust set to be revealed on your 30th birthday. He was going to tell you everything then, who he was, who your father was, what you meant to him. But he died before he could. And now," she gestured to the babies, "now we're here." "What do you want from me?" Maya asked. "The same thing you want," Catherine replied. "To protect these children, to give them the future they deserve. But to do that, we need to control this narrative before it controls us." Patricia leaned forward. "You're proposing what exactly?" "A settlement," Harrison said. "Generous child support, full medical coverage, trust funds for college and beyond. Formal custody arrangement weighted in Maya's favor. Weekends and holidays with Dominic, primary residence with Maya. In exchange, a strict non-disclosure agreement about the family connection. Publicly, the story is simply that Dominic initially doubted paternity. Tests proved him wrong, and he's now stepping up as a father." "You want me to lie," Maya said. "Udeikigi, I want you to protect your children from a media circus that will follow them their entire lives," Catherine countered. "Every school, every friend, every relationship, there'll always be those twins whose parents were secret cousins." "Is that what you want for Isabella? For Elijah?" Maya looked down at her sleeping babies. Isabella's little fist had worked its way out of her blanket, fingers curling and uncurling in dreams. Elijah's mouth moved in a sucking motion, remembering his last feeding. They were so small, so innocent, so unaware of the tangled web of secrets and lies that had created them. "I need time," she heard herself say. "I need to think." "Of course," Catherine stood. "Harrison will have the settlement documents ready by morning. Look them over. Discuss with Ms. Chen. But Maya," she paused. "Your father was one of the finest men I ever knew. Marcus loved him like a son, more than he loved his own biological sons, if I'm being honest. David was brilliant and kind and everything Marcus wished his legitimate heirs could be. You have his spirit. Don't let us break it." The meeting ended in a blur of polite goodbyes and escorted exits. Maya barely remembered getting back to Patricia's car, barely heard the attorney's careful analysis of the legal situation. Her mind kept circling back to a single image. Her father, young and vibrant in the few photos her mother had kept, standing beside Marcus Ashford in what she'd always thought was just a work photo. Father and son, hidden in plain sight. "Maya," Patricia's voice broke through her spiral. "Are you okay?" "I don't know what okay even means anymore." They were pulling up to Maya's apartment building in Queens, a far cry from Connecticut estates and million-dollar art collections. The building was safe and clean but tired, the kind of place where young families scraped by and dreams came in installments. "You don't have to decide tonight," Patricia said gently. "Sleep on it. We'll talk tomorrow." But as Maya carried the twins up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again, as she let herself into the small 2-bedroom apartment that smelled like baby formula and exhaustion, She knew sleep wouldn't come. Her phone rang just as she'd finished settling Isabella and Elijah into their cribs. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello?" "Maya," Dominic's voice, rough and strained. "I'm outside your building. Please, I need to talk to you. Just 5 minutes." Every instinct screamed not to let him in, but there was something in his voice, a breaking quality that echoed the fracture in her own chest. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. She waited by the door, listening to his footsteps on the stairs. When she opened it, he looked nothing like the polished billionaire from the conference room. His tie was gone, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed. "And I didn't know," he said before she could speak. "I swear to God, Maya, I didn't know. About your father, about Marcus, about any of it. I just thought you were a gold digger," she finished. "Yes, you made that clear." He flinched. "I was wrong. I was so spectacularly wrong about everything. About you, about us, about what mattered. And now we're—" He gestured helplessly. "Cousins. We're cousins, and we have children together, and I don't know how to process it," Maya supplied. "Welcome to my world. I've been processing impossible things for 6 months while you pretended I didn't exist." "I know." He ran his hands through his hair, destroying what was left of his careful styling. "I know I don't deserve anything from you. Forgiveness, understanding, nothing. But those babies in there, Isabella and Elijah, they're mine. They're ours. And I want God, Maya. I want to know them. I want to be their father. Is that even possible now? After everything?" Maya studied him. This man, who was simultaneously a stranger and family, the father of her children, and the embodiment of every broken promise. In the harsh fluorescent hallway light, she could see traces of the man she'd fallen for, the one who talked about rebuilding communities and ethical wealth, who'd made her laugh and made her believe in fairy tales. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I don't know if we can untangle this mess. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. And I definitely don't know how to explain to our children that their parents are second cousins who didn't even know they were related." "But you're not saying no," Dominic said, and there was desperate hope in his voice. "I'm saying I need time. I'm saying the twins deserve better than what we've given them so far. And I'm saying—" She paused, feeling the truth of it even as she spoke. I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, all these secrets and lies brought us to exactly where we were supposed to be. Your grandfather wanted to protect my family. My father would have wanted his grandchildren cared for. And somehow, impossibly, you and I created 2 perfect babies out of this mess." Dominic's eyes glistened. "Can I see them?" "Just for a minute." Maya stepped aside, let him into the tiny apartment that must have looked like a closet compared to his penthouse. But he didn't seem to notice the second-hand furniture or the laundry piled on the couch. He walked straight to the nursery, really just a corner of the bedroom sectioned off with a folding screen, and stood staring at the cribs. Isabella and Elijah slept on, oblivious to the seismic shifts in their world. "They're beautiful," Dominic whispered. "They're the most beautiful things I've ever seen." And watching him watch them, Maya felt something crack in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding, maybe the first small step toward whatever complicated future awaited them all. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think the DNA results are the end of this story? They're just the beginning. Ask Catherine what really happened the night Marcus died. Ask her why the autopsy was sealed. Some secrets are worth killing for." Maya's blood turned to ice. She looked up, and through the apartment window, she could swear she saw someone watching from across the street, a figure in the shadows, there and then gone like smoke. "Dominic," she said carefully, "when did your grandfather die? What were the circumstances?" He turned, and the haunted look on his face told her he'd been waiting for this question. "Heart attack," he said. "Sudden, unexpected. He was healthy, active, barely 70. The doctors said it was just one of those things. But the autopsy was classified, sealed by family request, or so we were told. And 3 days after his funeral, Harrison Blackwell came to me with an envelope Marcus had left. Instructions not to open it unless certain conditions were met. He met her eyes. One of those conditions was if anyone started asking questions about David Washington's family. What was in the envelope? I don't know. I never met the conditions until tonight. They stared at each other, both realizing simultaneously that this story, their story, was far from over, that somewhere in the Ashford family history, buried under decades of secrets and lies, something dangerous was waiting to be uncovered. And Maya's children were standing directly in its path. The envelope arrived at Maya's apartment at 6:47 a.m., hand-delivered by a courier who refused to say who'd sent it. Just a thick manila package with her name written in spidery handwriting that made her think of old men and older secrets. Inside, photocopies of medical records, emails, financial transactions, and a letter in Marcus Ashford's distinctive script, dated 2 weeks before his death. To whoever reads this, if you're reading this, it means I'm dead and someone is finally asking the right questions. Good. It's about time. David Washington was my son. Not in the eyes of the law, not in any way that mattered to the world, but in every way that mattered to me. His mother, Grace, was the love of my life, but I was a coward who chose money and status over her. I married Catherine because my father demanded it, because the Ashford name required appropriate continuation. I've spent 40 years trying to atone for that choice, protecting David's family, ensuring his daughters had opportunities, watching from the shadows like some pathetic ghost haunting his own failures. But if someone is digging into my death, it's because they've figured out what I suspected in my final days, that I didn't die of a heart attack, that the sudden cardiac event that took me was anything but natural. And if I'm right about who did this and why, then David's family, particularly his granddaughters, are in danger. The trust I established for Maya Washington isn't just money, it's insurance. Documents, recordings, evidence of crimes that go back decades, evidence that certain members of my family would kill to suppress. Find Harrison Blackwell. He has the key to safety deposit box 2847 at First National Bank of New York, under the name Grace Washington. Everything is there. Protect David's grandchildren. They're the best of both worlds, the best of the Washingtons and, God willing, the best of what the Ashfords could be if we weren't so poisoned by our own wealth. I'm sorry I never had the courage to claim David publicly. I'm sorry I was too weak to choose love over legacy. But maybe, in death, I can finally do something right. Marcus Ashford. Maya's hands shook as she set down the letter. Dominic, who'd stayed the night on her couch after the revelations, read over her shoulder. The twins were awake in their swings, gurgling and grabbing at hanging toys, blissfully unaware that their entire world was built on a foundation of murder and lies. "We need to call the police," Maya said. "And tell them what?" Dominic's voice was flat. "That my dead grandfather left a cryptic letter suggesting someone in my family killed him. There's no proof, no evidence, just paranoid ramblings from a sick old man." He wasn't sick. According to this letter, he was sick enough to suspect he was being poisoned. Dominic paced her small living room like a caged animal. "Do you understand what this means? If he's right, if someone really did kill him, then we're talking about my family. My mother, my uncles, He stopped. Who would even have motive? Maya thought about Catherine's cold calculation, Harrison's careful words, the family empire built on secrets and silence. Your grandfather left money to my family. A lot of money, I'm guessing. Who stood to lose the most from that? Everyone. Dominic sank onto the couch. My Uncle James was supposed to inherit controlling interest in Ashford Enterprises. My mother was set to become chair of the foundation. The will was rewritten 3 years ago, and there was conflict, lawyers, arguments, threats of lawsuits. Then grandfather died, and the new will was read. And, Maya prompted, and 20% of the estate went to an anonymous trust. We assumed it was for tax purposes, some offshore account to shield assets. But if that trust was for you, for your family, he looked at her with dawning horror. 20% of $18 billion. Someone killed him over $3.5 billion. The number was so large Maya couldn't even process it. $3.5 billion. For her sisters, her mother, her family. The family Marcus had abandoned and spent decades trying to compensate from afar. Her phone rang. Patricia Chen. Maya, don't go anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. I'm sending a security team to your apartment right now. What? Why? Because someone just tried to hack into my firm's servers. They were looking for your files specifically. DNA results, settlement documents, everything. We caught it, but whoever did this knows what they're doing. Professional-grade cyber attack. This is serious. Maya looked at the twins, at Dominic's pale face, at the letter that accused his family of murder. Patricia, I think it's more serious than you know. 20 minutes later, her apartment was full of people. Patricia and her associate, 2 private security guards, and, surprisingly, Harrison Blackwell, looking even older than he had the night before. I thought you might need this, he said, pressing a small brass key into Maya's palm. Safety deposit box 2847. I've been holding it for 23 years, waiting for Marcus's conditions to be met. Protecting Grace Washington's legacy was his dying wish. I won't fail him now. Why didn't you come forward before? Maya demanded. If you knew all this, if you suspected murder. I had no proof. Just an old man's suspicions, and my own gut feeling that Marcus's death was too convenient, too sudden. The autopsy was sealed through legal channels I couldn't penetrate without raising red flags. And I was told explicitly that if I pursued investigation, accidents could happen to those I cared about. His rheumy eyes held hers. I'm 78 years old, Mrs. Washington. I've outlived my wife. My children are grown and far away. I have nothing left to lose, but you do. Those babies, your family, I won't let them become collateral damage in the Ashfords, war for money and power. A knock at the door made everyone freeze. Dominic moved to answer it, but one of the security guards held up a hand. I'll check. Through the peephole, then a muttered curse. It's Catherine Ashford, with 2 men in suits. Let her in, Maya said, surprising herself. Let's hear what she has to say. Catherine swept in like she owned the place, her 2 lawyers flanking her. But something was different today. Her carefully maintained composure had cracks, and her eyes, so like Dominic's, so like Isabella's, held something Maya hadn't seen before. Fear. Harrison, Catherine said, ignoring everyone else. Tell me you haven't given her the key. I have. He stood straighter despite his age, as I was instructed to do when Marcus's conditions were met. Those conditions were manipulated. Marcus wasn't in his right mind at the end. He was paranoid, delusional. He was murdered, Maya said quietly, and the room went silent. Wasn't he? That's what you're really afraid of, not the money. Not the scandal. You're afraid of what he left in that safety deposit box. Catherine's mask shattered. For just a moment, Maya saw raw panic underneath. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Catherine whispered. What Marcus did, the secrets he kept, they weren't just about your father. They weren't just about illegitimate children and guilt money. Marcus Ashford built his empire on foundations that would destroy dozens of families if exposed. Fraud, blackmail, political corruption going back 40 years. He documented everything, kept evidence of every crime, every shortcut, every bribe. It was his insurance policy, his guarantee that no one would ever move against him because bringing him down would bring down half of New York's elite with him. She moved closer to Maya, desperation making her almost human. That safety deposit box is a bomb, and if you detonate it, you won't just hurt the Ashfords, you'll destroy families, ruin lives, cause scandals that will ripple through government and business for decades. People will go to prison. Fortunes will be lost. And your children, God, your children, will be at the center of it all. Is that what you want? Is that the legacy you want for Isabella and Elijah? Is it the legacy you wanted for Dominic? Maya shot back. Did you kill Marcus to protect it? The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Catherine's laugh was bitter. No, I didn't kill Marcus. I loved him, in my way. Despite everything, the affairs, the lies, the bastard son he mourned more than our own children, I loved him, and I would have protected his secrets until my dying breath. Then who? Dominic asked hoarsely. Catherine turned to her son, and there was genuine sorrow in her expression. Your Uncle James, he found out about the new will, about the 20% going to David's family. He tried to convince Marcus to change it, said it was betraying the Ashford legacy, that illegitimate children had no claim to the family fortune. When Marcus refused, when he said David Washington had more right to the Ashford name than any of his legitimate heirs. She closed her eyes. I found James in Marcus's study the night before he died. They'd been arguing, and the next morning, Marcus was dead. Do you have proof? Patricia demanded. Fragments. Enough to suspect, not enough to prove. James is careful, always has been. But I know my brother-in-law, and I know what he's capable of when his inheritance is threatened. Harrison spoke up, his voice heavy. James Ashford stands to lose everything if that safety deposit box is opened. He's named in multiple documents, recorded conversations discussing illegal campaign contributions, real estate fraud, tax evasion. If those files go public, he'll spend the rest of his life in federal prison. And he knows Maya has the key now, one of Catherine's lawyers added quietly. We've tried to keep it contained, but there are leaks. People talk. By tomorrow, James will know that Marcus's insurance policy is about to be opened, and if he killed Marcus to protect his secrets... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Maya felt ice flood her veins. She looked at Isabella and Elijah in their swings, so small and fragile and completely dependent on her to keep them safe. The key in her palm suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. What do you want from me? She asked Catherine. Let me handle James. Give me 72 hours before you open that box. Let me confront him with what we know, give him a chance to confess, to turn himself in quietly. Spare your children the media circus. Spare all of us the bloodbath that will come from exposing everything Marcus documented. And in exchange, full access to the estate funds set aside for you, not just the 20%, all of it. Education trusts for the twins, support for your mother and sisters, everything you could need for 10 lifetimes. Just give me 3 days to contain this before it explodes. Patricia put a hand on Maya's shoulder. Don't decide now. Let's think this through. Consult with... No, Maya interrupted. She stood, Isabella reaching for her, and she scooped up her daughter while Dominic instinctively picked up Elijah. A family portrait in miniature, bound by blood and secrets and impossible choices. I'm not making this decision based on money or fear or what's convenient for the Ashford family, Maya said, her voice steady. I'm making it based on one question. What would my father want? What would David Washington, Marcus Ashford's hidden son, the man who was apparently worth more to Marcus than his own legitimate children? What would he want me to do? She looked at the letter again. At Marcus's spidery handwriting confessing cowardice and regret. He'd want the truth. Whatever it costs, whatever it destroys, he'd want the truth, because that's what good people do. They don't hide behind money and power. They don't let murderers walk free because it's inconvenient to prosecute them. They stand up and they fight and they do what's right, even when it's hard. She turned to Catherine. You have 24 hours, not to cover this up, but to convince James to turn himself in. If he doesn't, if he runs, if he tries anything to hurt my family or silence this. She held up the key. Then I open this box and I release everything. Every document, every recording, every dirty secret Marcus Ashford collected. I'll burn the whole system down if that's what it takes to protect my children and get justice for my grandfather. Catherine's face had gone white. You'll destroy yourself in the process. Maybe. Maya kissed Isabella's forehead, watched Dominic rock Elijah with surprising gentleness. But at least my children will grow up knowing their mother had a spine. That she chose truth over comfort. That the Washington blood in their veins stands for something more than just taking what's handed to you. One of Catherine's lawyers leaned in, whispering urgently. Catherine shook her head, then looked at Maya with something that might have been respect. 24 hours, she agreed. But Maya, when this is over, however it ends, you should know that Marcus would be proud of you. He spent his whole life being a coward, choosing money over principle. You're better than he ever was, better than any of us. They left in a swirl of expensive perfume and quiet threats, leaving Maya and Dominic alone with the twins and the 2 security guards who'd stationed themselves at the door. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest, Dominic said quietly. Probably both. Maya's adrenaline was crashing, leaving her shaky and exhausted. Did I just declare war on your entire family? Yes. But for what it's worth. He shifted Elijah to one arm, reached out with his free hand to touch her face. I'm on your side. Whatever comes next, whatever my family does, I'm with you, with all of you. It should have felt wrong. This man who'd rejected her, who denied his own children, who was her second cousin in a tangle of secrets and lies. But with his hand gentle on her cheek and their children between them, it felt like maybe, just maybe, something right. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, just 3 words, check your door. One of the security guards moved to investigate, then called out, package, looks safe, but I'll scan it first. 30 seconds later, he brought in a small box, already opened and cleared. Inside, a burner phone and a note in cut-out magazine letters like something from a bad thriller. They're listening, use this. I can help. Maya powered on the phone with shaking hands. Immediately, it rang. Who is this? She demanded. Someone who knows what James Ashford is capable of. The voice was electronically distorted, impossible to identify, and someone who knows that 24 hours isn't enough time. He's already moving assets, covering tracks, preparing to disappear. If you want justice for Marcus, if you want to protect your family, you need to move faster. How do I know I can trust you? You don't. But check your email, the personal one, not the one Patricia Chen uses. I just sent you a photograph. Look at it, then decide. Maya pulled up her email on her regular phone. The image loaded slowly, and when it appeared, her blood turned to ice. It was her mother's house in Atlanta, taken today, based on the timestamp, and standing on the front porch, smiling at the camera, was a man Maya recognized from society pages and Ashford family photos, James Ashford. At her mother's house, with Maya's 2 younger sisters visible through the window behind him, the distorted voice continued, He's not just covering his tracks, he's sending a message. Cooperate, stay silent, or your family pays the price. The question is, Mrs. Washington, are you brave enough to call his bluff? Maya looked at Dominic, at their children, at the key to Pandora's box still clutched in her palm. Tell me what I need to do, she said into the phone, and felt the last door slam shut on any chance of a peaceful resolution. The war for the Ashford legacy and the truth about Maya's family had officially begun. The First National Bank of New York opened at 8 a.m. Maya was there at 7:45, flanked by security guards and carrying Isabella, while Dominic held Elijah. Patricia had argued against bringing the twins, but Maya refused to let them out of her sight. Not after seeing that photo of James at her mother's house. Her mother and sisters were safe now. The mysterious caller had arranged transport to a secure location through channels Patricia's firm verified as legitimate. But the threat remained, hanging over them like a sword. The bank manager, a nervous woman in her 50s, led them to the vault with hands that shook slightly when she verified Maya's identity against the safety deposit box records. This box hasn't been accessed in 23 years, she said, inserting both her key and Maya's into the dual locks, not since Mr. Marcus Ashford himself made the final deposit. The box slid out, large and heavy. Maya's heart hammered as the manager left them alone in the private viewing room. "Whatever's in there," Dominic said quietly, "we're in this together." Maya lifted the lid. Inside, dozens of file folders, USB drives, old cassette tapes, photographs, and a leather journal with Marcus Ashford's initials embossed in gold. She reached for the journal first, opened to the first page. "This is my confession, my insurance, my attempt at redemption. If you're reading this, I'm dead. And if you're Maya Washington, then you're my granddaughter, though I never had the courage to tell you while I lived." The journal chronicled 40 years of Ashford family sins, real estate deals built on forced evictions and racial discrimination, political bribes that elected governors and senators, tax fraud, money laundering, witness intimidation, page after page of crimes, each meticulously documented with dates, names, dollar amounts. But it was the section about David Washington that made Maya's vision blur with tears. David found out about the fraud in '94. He was reviewing acquisitions, doing due diligence like I'd taught him, and he discovered that we'd fabricated environmental reports to push through a commercial development. Communities displaced, families ruined, all so we could build luxury condos. He came to me, furious, demanded I make it right, return the land, compensate the families. I told him it was just business, that this was how the world worked. He told me I'd become everything I'd once despised. He threatened to go public, to expose everything. And my brother James, God help me, James said we had to handle it. I thought he meant legal pressure, maybe a payoff. I didn't know he meant the car accident that killed David wasn't an accident. James tampered with the brakes, hired someone professional, someone who couldn't be traced. David Washington, the best man I ever knew, my own son, was murdered by my brother to protect Ashford profits. I've lived with that knowledge for 30 years, kept silent to protect the family, to maintain the empire, but the weight of it has crushed me. Every day, David's daughters have lived without their father. Every milestone I've watched from afar. My granddaughters, my blood, it's been a knife in my heart. This journal, these files, they're my attempt to make it right. Evidence enough to bring down James, to expose the rot at the heart of the Ashford Empire. But I'm a coward. Even now, even knowing James killed my son, I can't bring myself to act while I'm alive. So I leave this choice to David's daughters, to Maya, Serena, and Nicole, my granddaughters. The Washingtons carry strength I never had, strength that comes from survival, from building lives without silver spoons or family empires to catch them when they fall. Whatever you decide to do with this information, know that I loved your father, know that I'm sorry, and know that the Ashford money, every penny that will come to you, is blood money, earned through suffering and maintained through silence. Use it better than we did. Be better than we were. Marcus Maya set down the journal with shaking hands. Beside her, Dominic was reading through folders, his face growing paler with each page. "There's enough here to destroy a dozen families," he whispered. My uncle, yes, but also senators, judges, business leaders, people who are still in power, still making decisions that affect millions. If we release this, the system burns, Maya finished. All the corruption Marcus documented, all the people he worked with, it all comes down. Some of these people have done good since then, Dominic said, but his voice was hollow. Senator Morrison, he's been fighting for environmental justice for 20 years. But according to this, he accepted bribes from Ashford Enterprises in the 90s to kill clean water legislation. People change, Maya said, or they don't. Either way, they need to answer for what they did. Her phone, the secure one from their mysterious helper, buzzed. A text. James knows you have the box. He's filing emergency injunctions to freeze the contents. You have maybe 2 hours before lawyers block you from releasing anything. Decide fast. Patricia burst into the room, her face grave. Maya, we just got served. James Ashford is claiming the safety deposit box contains stolen Ashford corporate documents. He's got a judge issuing a temporary restraining order. We can review the contents with legal oversight, but we can't release anything publicly without court approval. How long? Maya asked. Could be months. Years if he appeals. Years Isabella and Elijah spend in danger. Years my mother and sisters have to hide. Years James Ashford walks free for murdering my father. Maya looked at the files, the evidence, the proof of decades of crimes. No. That's not acceptable. Maya, Dominic said carefully, if you release this without court approval, you could face contempt charges, criminal liability. They could take the twins. They could try, she met his eyes, but I'm not my grandfather. I'm not spending my life being a coward, maintaining lies, protecting murderers because it's convenient or profitable or safe. She pulled out her regular phone, opened the camera, started photographing pages. First, the journal entries about David's murder, then the documentation of the brake tampering, the wire transfers to the hired killer, James's signature on the authorization. Maya, stop, Patricia said. Think about this. Once it's out there, you can't take it back. Good. She kept photographing. Dominic hesitated, then started helping, holding documents flat while she captured them. Every second we waste is another second James has to disappear or destroy evidence or hurt someone I love. She uploaded the photos to a cloud drive, then sent links to 3 journalists she'd researched, investigative reporters known for taking down powerful people, then to the FBI's anonymous tip line, then to every major news outlet she could think of. There, she said, hitting send on the final email. It's done. The truth is out. The silence in the bank vault was deafening. Then her phone erupted with calls. Patricia's phone, Dominic's phone, all of them ringing simultaneously as the evidence spread across the internet like wildfire. Patricia answered hers, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with an expression Maya couldn't read. That was my senior partner. James Ashford was just arrested at JFK. He was boarding a private flight to Brazil. The FBI had already been investigating him based on anonymous tips, apparently from our mysterious helper. Your evidence just gave them everything they needed for immediate arrest. Maya's legs went weak. Dominic caught her elbow, steadied her. It's over, she whispered. The arrest is just beginning, Patricia said. And there will be trials, appeals, media storms. Every news outlet in the country is going to want to interview you. Your privacy is gone. The twins will grow up with all of this being public record. But they'll grow up knowing the truth. Knowing their great-great-uncle murdered their great-grandfather and tried to intimidate their family into silence. Knowing their mother fought back. Maya looked at Isabella, gurgling happily in her carrier, unaware that her mother had just detonated a bomb under New York's elite. That's worth more than privacy. Her phone rang again, an unknown number, but she answered anyway. Ms. Washington, this is Special Agent Rebecca Torres with the FBI. I need to speak with you about the documents you just released. Am I in trouble? No. You're a witness who just handed us the biggest corruption case of the decade. We'll need your testimony, sworn statements, chain of custody documentation. But Ms. Washington, the agent's voice softened, your father would be proud. David Washington was trying to do exactly what you just did when he was killed. You finished what he started. Tears streamed down Maya's face. Thank you, she managed. When she hung up, she found Dominic staring at his own phone, his face stricken. What is it? My mother. She wants to meet, says it's urgent. They found Catherine Ashford sitting on a bench outside the bank, looking older than her years. When she saw them approaching with the twins, something in her expression cracked. I didn't know, she said without preamble, about David's murder, about James tampering with the car. Marcus told me it was an accident, and I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because if I admitted what our family was capable of, she looked at Maya, I would have had to admit what I'd married into, what I'd sacrificed my life to protect. You knew about the corruption, Maya said. Yes, the bribes, the fraud, all of it. I knew and said nothing because that's what Ashford wives do. We stay silent and smile and preserve the family name. She stood, moved closer. But I didn't know James killed David, and I didn't know about you, about Marcus's granddaughters. If I had... Would you have done anything different? Maya asked. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then, no, probably not. Because I'm a coward too. Just like Marcus. Just like all of us who've lived our lives in golden cages, pretending comfort is worth the price of our souls. She reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope. This is my resignation from the Ashford Foundation Board. My statement to the press, acknowledging what I knew and when I knew it. My testimony for the prosecutors. I'm done protecting monsters. Maya took the envelope. Surprised. Why now? Because Isabella has my mother's eyes, Catherine said simply. My mother, who married into the Ashford family at 18 and spent 60 years regretting it, who told me on her deathbed that she'd traded her dreams for security and lost both in the process. She looked at the twins. I won't let them grow up in that same prison. Money can't buy back integrity. It can't resurrect the dead or undo the crimes committed in its name. But maybe it can fund something better. She pulled out another document. This is the paperwork transferring my voting shares in Ashford Enterprises to a trust controlled by you, Maya. You and whatever board of directors you choose. Use the company's resources to undo some of the harm we've done. Rebuild the communities we destroyed. Compensate the families we displaced. Be better than we were. Maya stared at the papers, at this woman who'd seemed so cold and calculating just days ago. I don't understand. I'm 72 years old. I've spent my entire adult life being Mrs. Ashford, protecting the family name, maintaining appearances. But Isabella and Elijah, Catherine's voice broke. They're my last chance to be something more than just a name in a society column. They're Washingtons and Ashfords both. Maybe they can heal what we broke. Dominic spoke up. Mother, if you testify, you could face charges yourself. Accessory after the fact, conspiracy, I know. My lawyers have already negotiated immunity in exchange for full cooperation. But even without immunity, I'd do it. Because Maya is right. Some things are worth more than safety. She looked at her son. Your father asked me once what kind of legacy I wanted to leave. I told him I wanted to be remembered as elegant, refined, the perfect matriarch. But looking at these babies, at what we've all done to protect our precious reputation, she shook her head. Why, I'd rather be remembered as the woman who finally told the truth. Maya's mysterious helper called again. This time, when she answered, the voice wasn't distorted. Ms. Washington, this is Grace Chen, Patricia's daughter. Maya blinked. You've been the anonymous tip source. I've been investigating the Ashford family for 3 years as part of my doctoral thesis on generational wealth and corruption. When I realized you were Marcus's granddaughter, that you'd be targeted once you claimed your inheritance, she paused. My mother doesn't know. She can't know. Attorney-client privilege would have prevented her from helping you the way I could. But I thought David Washington's daughter deserved better than to walk into this blind... Thank you, Maya whispered. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. James will fight from prison. There are dozens of powerful people implicated in those documents who'll try to discredit you, claim you fabricated evidence. The next year of your life is going to be brutal. I know. But you won't be alone. I've connected you with a network of journalists, activists, and lawyers who've been waiting for evidence like this for years. They'll help you navigate what comes next. And Ms. Washington. Grace's voice warmed. Your father tried to bring down this same system 30 years ago. You succeeded where he couldn't. That's not just justice, that's legacy. As the sun set over New York City, Maya sat in her small apartment with Dominic and the twins, watching the news coverage explode across every channel. James Ashford's arrest, Catherine's resignation, the documents spreading through social media faster than lawyers could issue takedown notices. Oh, we did it, Dominic said quietly, Elijah asleep on his chest. We actually did it. We started it, Maya corrected. The trials, the investigations, the rebuilding, that'll take years, maybe decades. Are you scared? She looked at Isabella, at Elijah, at the man who'd gone from denying their existence to holding their son like he was made of glass. Terrified, she admitted, but also free. For the first time since I found out I was pregnant, I feel like I can breathe. Like we're not buried under all these secrets anymore. Dominic shifted, careful not to wake Elijah. Maya, I know I don't deserve this. Don't deserve you or them or any chance at being part of this family. But I want to try, not because of DNA or duty or guilt, but because... He met her eyes. Because you're the bravest person I've ever met. Because our children deserve a father who shows up, and because I think maybe, possibly, if you can find a way to forgive me, we could build something real out of all this wreckage. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Maya said honestly. You hurt me. You rejected our children. You were part of a system that killed my father and tried to erase his existence. I know, but, she continued softly, I think maybe I could learn to, in time, if you prove that you mean it, that you're willing to be better than your family legacy. He nodded, and in his eyes, Isabella's eyes, she saw something that looked like hope. But then her phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. You won the battle, but some wars never end. Check the safe in Marcus's study. What he documented was just the beginning. The real secrets are still buried, and people have died protecting them. Sweet dreams. Maya Washington. You're going to need them. Maya's blood ran cold. She looked at the message, at Dominic's questioning expression, at the twins sleeping peacefully in a world that had just gotten infinitely more dangerous. What is it? Dominic asked. She showed him the text. Watched his face pale as he read it. Marcus's study. There's a safe behind the Rembrandt in the library. I've never seen it opened. Father said it was just old documents, family heirlooms. We need to check it, Maya said. Now, it's almost midnight. Would you rather wait and wonder? Would you rather let whoever sent this have time to get there first and destroy whatever evidence Marcus hid? He kissed Elijah's head gently. Stood. I'll call security. We're not going alone. But as they prepared to return to the estate, as Maya bundled the twins into their car seats and Patricia assembled a team of lawyers and guards, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something much bigger than family secrets and corporate fraud. Marcus Ashford had documented decades of crimes in that safety deposit box. But what could be dangerous enough that people would still kill to protect it 30 years later? What secrets were buried so deep that exposing corruption, murder, and generational fraud was just the beginning? And most terrifyingly, who had sent that text? And how did they know Maya would be brave or foolish enough to keep digging? The Ashford estate loomed against the night sky, every window dark except for the library on the second floor. Someone was already inside. The library door hung open, and through it Maya could see the Rembrandt askew on the wall, the safe behind it gaping empty. "Too late," Dominic whispered, but then a voice from the shadows. "Not too late, just in time." An elderly black woman stepped into the light, and Maya's world tilted again. Because she recognized this woman from old photographs in her mother's house. Photographs her mother claimed were of a cousin who'd moved away before Maya was born. "Aunt Grace," Maya breathed. "Not Aunt Grandmother." The woman moved closer, and Maya could see her father's features reflected in the weathered face. Grace Washington, Marcus Ashford's great shame, and, once upon a time, his great love. Maya's mind reeled. "You're supposed to be dead. My mother said you died when she was a teenager." "I let everyone believe that. Easier than explaining why I disappeared. Safer for your father, for your mother, for all of you." Grace looked at the empty safe. "Marcus and I made a deal 40 years ago. He'd provide for our son, for David. But I had to disappear, become a ghost, because his family would never accept a black woman as anything but a servant, and they certainly wouldn't accept David as an heir." But the safety deposit box was Marcus's guilt made manifest. Documentation of every crime, every sin, meant to protect you girls if anything happened to him. But this, she gestured to the safe, this was meant for me. Information Marcus collected about his own family's darkest secret, the one that predates the Ashford Empire, the one that explains why they're willing to kill to protect their legacy. She pulled a weathered folder from her bag, held it out to Maya. The Ashford fortune wasn't built on real estate genius. It was built on stolen land, Native American territory seized through fraud and violence in the 1890s. Marcus's grandfather, Jonathan Ashford, didn't just cheat the indigenous communities, he orchestrated massacres, burned villages, murdered anyone who stood in his way, then buried the evidence and rewrote history to make himself a titan of industry. The folder contained photographs, horrible, gut-wrenching images of violence and death, land deeds with forged signatures, letters in Jonathan Ashford's hand detailing the removal of obstacles to progress. "There are still descendants of those communities," Grace continued, "still people who remember the old stories of what was taken from them. And there are still Ashfords who would rather see those people silenced than face what their fortune is built on." Dominic sank into a chair, his face ashen. "This is why James killed Marcus. Because he knew about this. James killed Marcus because Marcus was going to return the land, all of it, 15,000 acres in upstate New York, currently valued at over $7 billion, that rightfully belongs to the Onondaga Nation. Marcus had already drafted the transfer documents, was planning to make a public apology and restitution. James found out and—" Grace's voice broke. "And he killed his own brother to prevent it." Maya looked at the documents, at the evidence of atrocities committed a century ago that still echoed through generations, at the blood money that had funded her father's childhood, her own education, the trust fund that was supposed to secure her children's future. "What do we do?" she whispered. "What Marcus wanted to do," Grace said firmly. "We return the land. We make restitution. We tell the truth, no matter how ugly it is, because that's what the Washington blood demands, integrity, even when it costs everything. But the company, Dominic said. The employees, the shareholders, the will survive, Grace interrupted. Ashford Enterprises has plenty of other assets. Losing those 15,000 acres will hurt, might even force restructuring, but the company won't collapse. What will collapse is the myth. The carefully constructed lie that the Ashfords are self-made titans of industry, rather than the descendants of murderers and thieves. Catherine appeared in the doorway, Harrison Blackwell behind her. She's right, Catherine said, her voice heavy. I found the transfer documents Marcus was preparing, along with his research into survivors of Jonathan Ashford's violence. He was going to make this public before he died. James stopped him. How long have you known about this? Maya demanded. I suspected. Marcus became obsessed with the family history in his last years. But I didn't know the full extent until tonight, when Harrison showed me what he'd kept hidden. Catherine moved to stand beside Grace, two elderly women from opposite worlds, connected by the man they'd both loved. I should have pressed harder, should have demanded answers. But I chose comfortable ignorance over difficult truth. She looked at Maya. Don't make my mistakes. You have a choice now. You could bury this alongside Marcus. Take the money, raise your children in luxury, let the past stay buried. Or you could finish what your grandfather started, return what was stolen, face the consequences, be better than all of us. Maya looked down at Isabella, sleeping peacefully in her carrier, at Elijah in Dominic's arms, his little chest rising and falling with each breath. She thought about her father, killed for trying to expose corruption, about Marcus, murdered for trying to make restitution, about all the lives destroyed by Ashford greed across generations. I want my children to grow up knowing where they come from, she said quietly. All of it. The good and the terrible. The Washington strength and the Ashford shame. Because you can't heal from wounds you won't acknowledge, and you can't build a real future on a foundation of lies. She pulled out her phone, started typing an email to the same journalist she'd contacted before, attached photographs of the documents Grace had brought, added a statement. My name is Maya Washington. I'm the granddaughter of Marcus Ashford and his partner Grace Washington. I'm the great-great-granddaughter of the indigenous communities destroyed by Jonathan Ashford's greed, and I'm writing to announce that the Ashford family will be returning 15,000 acres of stolen land to the Onondaga Nation, along with financial restitution and a public acknowledgement of historical wrongs. This won't erase what was done. Nothing can bring back the lives lost or the cultures nearly destroyed. But it's a start, and it's what integrity demands. Some legacies are worth preserving. Others need to be dismantled. The Ashford Empire falls into the second category. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Dominic's phone immediately started ringing. So did Catherine's. So did Harrison's. The legal and financial implications of what Maya had just announced would take months to fully process. But Grace smiled, a real smile, warm and proud. David would be so proud of you, she said, pulling Maya into a hug that smelled like lavender and old photographs. My beautiful granddaughter, my brave girl, you're everything I hoped the Washington women would become. Over the next weeks, the story dominated every news cycle. The revelation of the Ashford fortune's origins, the land restitution, the trials of James Ashford for murder and corruption, Catherine's testimony, Harrison's corroboration of decades of crimes. But there were also stories of hope, the Onondaga Nation's acceptance of the returned land, community leaders talking about healing and reconciliation. Young people inspired by Maya's choice to dismantle her own privilege in service of justice. And through it all, Maya kept working, not at a museum anymore. She'd been offered a position at a foundation dedicated to indigenous rights and land restitution, using her art history background to help communities reclaim stolen cultural artifacts. Dominic stepped down from Ashford Enterprises, taking a position at a sustainable housing non-profit, learning to build rather than just acquire, to create value rather than extract it. On weekends, he'd take Isabella and Elijah to the park, slowly learning to be a father instead of just a name on a birth certificate. 6 months after the revelations, Maya stood on the land that had been returned to the Onondaga Nation, watching a ceremony of blessing and reclamation. Isabella toddled beside her, fascinated by the drumming. Elijah slept against Dominic's chest. Peaceful in the autumn sunshine, Grace stood beside her, one weathered hand on Maya's shoulder. "Your grandfather would have wanted to be here for this," she said quietly. "He is here," Maya replied. "It in every choice we make to be better than what came before. In these babies, who carry both Washington and Ashford blood, but aren't defined by either. He's here in the truth we chose over comfortable lies." Catherine approached, moving slower than she had 6 months ago. The trials had aged her, as had the public reckoning with her own complicity. But there was something softer in her face now, something almost peaceful. "They're beautiful," she said, watching the twins. "Are David's great-grandchildren, Marcus's legacy made right." "They're just kids," Maya said, "not symbols or redemption or anything more than 2 babies learning to walk and talk and figure out their place in the world." "Exactly," Catherine smiled. "Just kids, not heirs to an empire or carriers of generational shame. Just Isabella and Elijah, growing up with parents brave enough to choose truth. That's the real legacy." As the ceremony continued, as traditional songs filled the air and community members shared stories of the land's history, Maya felt Dominic's hand find hers. Not romantic, not yet, maybe never, but partnership, cooperation. 2 people learning to be better for the children they'd accidentally created out of ignorance and privilege and tangled family secrets. "Maya," Dominic said quietly, "thank you for not giving up on me, on them, on the possibility that people can change." "Thank you for proving they can," she replied. Isabella tugged on her mother's skirt, wanting to be picked up. Maya lifted her, settled her on her hip, and felt the familiar weight of responsibility and love. This little girl, with Dominic's eyes and David's smile and Grace's stubborn chin, represented a future written on terms Maya chose, not inherited. And as the sun set over the reclaimed land, as elders blessed the ground and spoke of healing that would take generations to complete, Maya made a silent promise to Isabella and Elijah, to David Washington and Marcus Ashford, to Grace and Catherine and all the women who'd carried secrets and shame for the benefit of powerful men. The cycle ended here. The lies stopped now. The next generation would grow up knowing the truth, ugly and beautiful, shameful and redemptive, all of it, because that's what real love demanded. Not protection from hard truths, but the strength to face them. Not inherited wealth built on stolen land, but earned lives built on integrity. And if that meant Isabella and Elijah grew up less rich but more human, less powerful but more kind, well, that was a trade Maya would make every single time. Grace squeezed her shoulder. "Ready to go home?" Maya looked at the twins, at Dominic, at the land reclaimed, and the truth finally told. "Yes," she said, "ready to go home." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she knew exactly what home meant. Not a place, not a name or a bank account or a legacy of lies. Home was truth, carried forward into light, claimed by those brave enough to demand it. Home was 2 babies sleeping peacefully, unaware of the battles fought to secure their future. Home was the choice, made new every day, to be better than what came before. Home was love, messy and complicated, and built on ruins but real in a way that all the Ashford money could never buy. And as they walked back to the car, Isabella babbling happily about drums and songs, while Elijah dreamed against his father's shoulder, Maya knew that everything, the pain, the revelations, the impossible choices, had been worth it. because the truth, once spoken, could never be unspoken, and the future, once claimed, belonged to whoever was brave enough to build it.